Rapids, Minnesota remained a predominantly white community. Immediately adjacent to the Mississippi River, it was still a developing and rapidly changing suburban community with an increasing amount of single-family new home construction. In 1987, only a few years after I was born, my family moved to Coon Rapids, just 20 minutes north of Minneapolis, chosen for its convenience to the city, where my father worked for the railroad, and for its affordability. Before I was born, my parents, neither of whom is from Minnesota, had lived a short time in Minnesota but made the difficult decision to move to Oklahoma, near my maternal grandmother, when my dad was laid off during the Reagan years and the economic downturn of the early 1980s. After several years in Oklahoma, where we had family ties, the cost of living was significantly cheaper, and my parents were able to secure employment, we briefly moved to Aberdeen, South Dakota. Here my dad was able to secure a better-paying job before we eventually returned to Minnesota, when he was finally called back to his employment with the railroad in Minneapolis. As a young working-class family with both of my parents working blue-collar jobs, we lived in an apartment complex for a brief time before my parents were able to purchase a lot in a new subdivision and build a home. My sister and I, both in the early years of elementary school, were simultaneously enrolled in the local school district, as well as the district's Indian education program. As I grew from toddler to teen and learned over the years, this program, exclusively for American Indian students in the suburban district, would be influential in my perceptions of self, how others perceived me, and how I eventually found my way to both college and graduate school. It would be through this institution, the Anoka Hennepin Indian Education Program, that I would begin to interrogate, historicize, and analyze the complexity of what it means to be a suburban Indian and how access to the suburbs, based on centuries of federal Indian policy and housing policy, remains guarded and off-limits for many American Indian people. I spent the bulk of my childhood and adolescence in Coon Rapids. As a first-generation college student, I returned home to Coon Rapids after completing my bachelor's degree, where I began the process to land my first real job. In the fall of 2005, I was hired by the Anoka Hennepin Indian Education Program to serve as an academic advisor. As a liaison between Native students, their parents, and schools, I worked with approximately 150 American Indian youths in kindergarten through grade 12. With nearly 40,000 students, Anoka Hennepin remains Minnesota's largest school district. At the time of my employment, the district served over 500 Native students across all grades. Notably, this was the exact same Indian education program I had participated in as I made my way from kindergarten through 12th grade when I was enrolled as a student in the district. The Anoka Hennepin Indian Education Program, which first began serving students during the 1973 to 1974 academic year, works to encourage and inspire the academic achievement, social and emotional development, and cultural awareness of the district's American Indian students. To be eligible for services, each student must be an enrolled member of a federally recognized tribe or have a parent or grandparent who is an enrolled member of a federally recognized tribe. As a federally funded program with additional state and local support, the Indian Education Program also relies on the Johnson-O'Malley Act, passed in 1934, for supplementary funding, which is contingent on the number of Native students enrolled in the program who meet specific blood quantum criteria. My experience as a Native woman who was raised in a predominantly white suburb and as an educator working with Native youth in a predominantly white suburban school district forced me to reconcile what it means to be a Native person who lives in a suburb, as well as ask additional questions about who has access to suburban living. As a school district employee, I regularly faced difficult questions, both from the general public and from district staff, about the Indian Education Program. These inquiries, at times accusations, were almost always about the program's purposes, the missed learning time when Native students left their regular classes to participate in cultural programs and receive academic support, how and why the program was funded, how it was perceived.